Here's Brody Brazil.
So when I was brainstorming this video and trying to figure out what to title it and how I wanted to approach the World Baseball Classic, I was almost going to put a question mark next to the word relevant. I'm glad I didn't. In fact, now I want to change it. I almost want to put an exclamation point up there because I do believe here in 2023, this tournament is finally relevant. I mean, you've heard of the World Baseball Classic before this year, right? You knew about it. You knew it existed. You've seen highlights of it. But never before this year has it totally captivated the baseball community. Has it seemed to have the global reach that we've seen in the last couple weeks? I mean, people are talking about it, and some because of injuries in a negative fashion. But outside of that, it's all positive. It's all a conversation, and I believe it is all good for baseball. And this tournament, having it be finally relevant. So I want to make a couple points in no particular order here, but let's first detail the background. The World Baseball Classic debuted all the way back in 2006. So 5 different editions, including this year, spanning 17 years, 06, 09, 2013, 2017, and then obviously a couple years off. Now here we are in 2023 with the 5th edition of it. And this one is just, it has finally hit, right? It's got some traction. The players love it. Fans love it. People in the media are having a joy covering this. And even though it comes at a different time of the year, right? We're typically not in full baseball mode yet. We're watching essentially playoff-style baseball here in early March. So we'll talk more about the timing of it later on, but I think we can all agree to establish the rest of this video that this World Baseball Classic has just come across much differently. It's generating a lot more interest, a lot more conversation, and a lot more excitement. There is no other world stage for baseball. Honestly, the Olympics haven't seen baseball since 2012. They did for many decades and years before that, but there is no other place to see countries represented like this playing baseball against each other. So it does kind of fill the gap. Obviously, it existed before the Olympics did away with baseball, and maybe they'll bring baseball back at some point. They said participation was too narrow, too low. Well, here we are with the tournament that is doing better than Olympic-type numbers when it comes to who and how many people are watching across the world. And speaking of a good global presence, I think we need to be honest with ourselves about baseball. It's not soccer. It's not basketball, certainly not played as widespread globally. I think it falls into a similar category as American football. Huge here in the United States, and there are some other countries spotted around the globe where baseball and football are big, but again, it just does not have the kind of universal presence that some other sports do. But there is a really good global presence for this tournament. 20 teams, right? 20 countries across 5 continents, and you have 7 host nations in the first round of play. So you are getting, again, a broad scope and a broad taste of baseball from across the globe. Of course, is that number low, respectively? Yeah. I'd love to see 40 different countries represented across even another continent, if possible. But 7 host nations, it's nice to have, some of these initial pool games played all across the world. I know that's difficult. I know travel is not easy for most of these major league players. But I can appreciate the fact that they've said, hey, this is a world tournament. We can't just do it in Arizona and Florida, even though that makes the most sense. I really do enjoy the global presence. And obviously, even the smaller countries that have just more of a baseball pipeline, they are competing equally as much as countries 4 and 5 times their size. I absolutely love that part of it. How about the players' investment? And it goes more than just what a Mookie Betts and a Mike Trout have been saying about being in this tournament, or what Trey Turner said about the excitement even after his first big homer. He said this is like the loudest environment I've ever played in. Players are comparing World Baseball Classic moments to World Series moments. So it goes beyond the quotes. Just look at the body language. Look at the willingness to participate. Now, I understand that not every star big leaguer has decided to be in the WBC. It's an individual competition, or decision, I should say. It's a team competition. It's an individual decision. For everybody with a different circumstance, I respect why maybe you wouldn't want to participate, or you can't participate, or it doesn't make sense. That's fine. But The bigger thing to focus on here is how many players are interested, want to get into this, want to be a part of this, and even more than what they say, just look at the body language. After a big play in a big game, yeah, they are totally bought in. And you'll love to see it. How about some of the international ratings? Now, we could sit here in the United States and try and reflect on how we're viewing this. Oh, yeah, guess what? We're not the only ones in the world. We're not the only ones that this tournament is for. Let's be very clear about that. Japan, Korea, that game drew a 44.4 rating in Japan, which was higher than any sport featured in the 2021 Tokyo Olympics. Think about that. The Olympics hosted in Japan never saw a 44.4 rating for any specific event, but the Japan-Korea game drew just that for WBC television ratings. That's impressive. And again, Japan, a country where I love to see it, and I hope that this tournament benefits their future as a baseball country and a talent-producing baseball country. How about this? In Puerto Rico, 61% of televisions in Puerto Rico were tuned to the WBC game against the Dominican Republic, right? Puerto Rico, the DR, you get that competition. 61% of televisions in Puerto Rico. Like, think about the population. Think about the investment. That is phenomenal. How about just actual attendance, right? Forget ratings of people watching from afar and wide. How about actual people saying, yeah, they're playing in my backyard. I want to go see that game. Now, we're talking here about the first round of pool play, but the 2023 World Baseball Classic drew more than 1 million fans for that initial round, right? When all the games were being played in the most sites across the globe. But 1 million fans, which is the most in history for the first round, surpassing 06, 09, 13, and 17 numbers. The previous record, right, was 510,000 the last time they did it back in 2017. So yeah, basically doubling their attendance in the first round, right? We're not even talking about the later games that matter more or the championship of the WBC. We're talking about the initial rounds. And yeah, maybe you do have some lopsided contests, but you had double the fans from the last time. So look at the ratings, look at the actual attendance, and this is not just stateside. These are across all the global sites. That is awesome. That is very encouraging. Now, let's be very clear. Let's address kind of the elephants in the room. And I say elephants plural because we've had two key serious injuries. A broken bone for Jose Altuve after being hit by a pitch, and the bizarre, awkward injury to Edwin Diaz. He was just celebrating a win on the field with his teammates, and now he's going to miss a significant period of time. Inconvenient to Major League Baseball because you are putting players at risk of just playing more baseball and different baseball? Yeah, sure, I guess. You're also, even for all the healthy players, you're taking them away from their normal spring training and the team bonding and the camaraderie that is typically supposed to build with a group. But I mean, it's okay to say that, yes, it's inconvenient to Major League Baseball, but all of this is also great for the game. Sure, inconvenient for the big leagues, great for the game. Those two things do not have to be separated. They can actually exist. You can actually say all of that in the same sentence. I'm actually quite happy that Major League Baseball is part of this. This is not something that is necessarily a conflict. Look, I understand. If you are the league and these are your star players and you're having them play extra baseball, games that don't exactly go to your business model, that they are allowing them to participate in something that matters to the game, something that matters to them individually. They are letting the players have this opportunity to make this choice and go play in these tournament games and represent their country in a way that honestly they can't do pretty much anywhere else right now because there are no Olympics and it does not conflict with the regular season schedule. More on that at the end of this video. It is okay to say that all of this is just a little bit inconvenient for Major League Baseball, but it's great for the game of baseball. And certainly you do not want to see anybody hurt at any time, but some of these things might have happened anyway. I'll conclude with that just a little bit later on. This is the optimal time to be playing this tournament. People have suggested, well, why don't you start it before spring training? Nope, you can't do that. You can't have a certain group of players get ready for the tournament even a month sooner than their normal spring training. That shortens their off season. That puts them in an extended period where they may not be able to compete as well in October or so. It's not a possibility. Like you can't even go down that road in terms of an ask. You also can't ask, I've heard people say, well, why don't you just play it right after the World Series? Not possible. Think about how many players stop playing, really good players stop playing after game 162. Their teams don't make the playoffs, or even a week later if their team is out with the wild card, or after the ALDS or NLDS. They're waiting for 2 or 3 or 4 weeks before they'd be playing competitive WBC games again. That's also not possible. Next thing you know, they're playing almost until Thanksgiving when nobody else is. So this tournament absolutely cannot happen after the World Series either. It literally has to happen right here, right now, during spring training. I say this is the optimal time. There's no perfect time. I think we can establish that. But this is the optimal time, all things considered and what we know with the baseball calendar. And if there are these injury concerns about what happened to Altuve, about what happened to Diaz, then we should also all be proponents of shortening spring training by about 7 days and correspondingly 7 games. We saw last year with the lockout how fast spring training came together, how fast they were able to start playing games and get the show on the road with the regular season. Now, that's not optimal. That was like 2 weeks. But I don't know that we necessarily need 5 to 6 weeks, right? Could we cut it down to 4? Maybe touch 5, but really more like 4. My point here is that spring training is part of baseball's business model, right? There's a reason that they come into camp, they train for about 5, 6, 7 days, and then they start playing games immediately. Sure, they want to play games. That's the rewarding part. That's the evaluation period, how teams make decisions on spring training. But in reality, I fully believe that spring training games could be lopped off a week early and start the regular season if you were really concerned about putting ball players out there and having them incur additional risk of getting hurt for games that don't matter. I think WBC games do matter. I know spring training games absolutely do not matter. So if we really have the concern, I'm not here to say let's not have spring training. That's also a ridiculous thought. Games need to be played, rhythms need to be gained, but we could also do without the final 7 days. And if you don't believe me, hang out around a big league team for their final days into the regular season. There are such a thing as the dog days of spring training. It is those last 7 days. The work has been put in. Everybody's ready. It's like, let's get this thing over with. Let's get out of Arizona. Let's get out of Florida. Let's go to the big league ballpark. So that's my thought on the big controversy of injury concerns. So finally relevant? Absolutely. The World Baseball Classic is here. It has, I think, arrived in 2023, and I can't wait to see where it goes. Obviously, the rest of this tournament, but also when it comes back in 2026. And I'll be honest, I'll close with this. When I approached this season, I knew it was coming, and I even had the thought of, why are we doing this? It has never really taken off. It has never really captivated me. I don't see that buy-in from fans, from players. I've seen moments, we all have, but certainly not like this year. And so that's kind of the point. It has reached its tipping point. The World Baseball Classic is finally relevant. Let me know what you think about this video. Thumbs up if you liked it or if you found some value in it. And don't forget, subscribe to the channel so I can see you next time.